Richard Mayhew's morning started like any other in his perfectly ordinary London life. The autumn fog wrapped around the city's towers as he navigated through the bustling streets, briefcase in hand, mind occupied with thoughts of his upcoming dinner with his fiancée, Jessica. She was everything he wasn't: organized, ambitious, and absolutely certain about her place in the world. As he passed the familiar shops and cafes, he couldn't shake off the feeling that something was different about this particular morning. The air seemed to shimmer with an unusual quality, and the shadows in the alleyways appeared deeper than usual. It happened in an instant. A small figure stumbled out of the darkness, her Victorian-style dress torn and stained with blood. Dor, as she would later introduce herself, collapsed at Richard's feet, her kaleidoscope eyes pleading for help. Despite Jessica's protests and tugging at his arm, Richard couldn't ignore the injured girl. Something about her seemed to bend reality itself, the way shadows curved around her, how the streetlights flickered in her presence. As he helped her up, he noticed her wounds seemed to heal slightly at his touch, and the air around them grew thick with an otherworldly presence. The morning after helping Dor, Richard's world began to unravel. His office keycard wouldn't work. The security guard looked right through him. His colleagues walked past without a glance, his desk occupied by someone else's belongings. Even Jessica seemed to have forgotten his existence entirely. As panic set in, he noticed other strange changes. Shadows moving against the light, voices whispering from the walls, and glimpses of impossible things in the corners of his vision. Standing in the middle of his familiar city, Richard Mayhew was becoming a ghost in his own world. When night fell, he heard a scratching at his window, 17 floors up, and turned to find a figure crouched impossibly on the ledge outside, grinning a smile full of secrets. Richard Mayhew's world began crumbling like a sandcastle in rising tide. His morning started normally enough. Coffee stains on his tie, a meeting he was late for. But by afternoon, taxi drivers looked through him as if he were made of mist. His bank card was declined. His landlord passed him in the hallway without a glance. Even his fiancée Jessica walked right past him in the street, her expensive heels clicking on pavement, her eyes scanning through him as if he were nothing but London fog. The city he knew was rejecting him, pushing him towards something else, something below. In his apartment, which suddenly felt less like his own, shadows seemed to whisper, and the walls felt thinner, as if another world pressed against them from the other side. Following whispers that only he could hear, Richard found himself descending into the underground, where the darkness felt alive. Here he met the rat speakers, mysterious figures in tattered robes who conversed with London's rodent population in hushed, reverent tones. Their leader, an elderly woman, with eyes that reflected lamplight like a cat's, taught him the first rule of London below. Nothing was what it seemed. A discarded crisp packet might be a valuable map. A rusty key could open doors to impossible places. As Richard stumbled through this new reality, he found Dor's trail leading deeper into the darkness, marked by the scent of rain on stone and the echo of footsteps that walked through walls. The rat speakers guided Richard to the infamous Knight's Bridge, a crossing where darkness itself had substance and hunger. Dor and her enigmatic protector, the Marquis de Carabas, waited on the other side, but the bridge demanded its toll in fear and memory. As Richard stepped onto the ancient stones, the darkness reached for him with velvet fingers. Screams echoed from centuries past, and shapes moved in the blackness that had nothing to do with light or shadow. The Marquis called out a warning that came too late. Something ancient and hungry had awakened in the darkness, something that had waited centuries for a crossing soul like Richard's. As the last light faded behind him, Richard realized with horrifying clarity that he wasn't alone on the bridge, and whatever watched him from the darkness knew his name. Richard stumbled through the dimly lit corridors of London below, his business suit now tattered and stained with substances he'd rather not identify. The Marquis de Carabas materialized from the shadows like a cat, his velvet coat swishing dramatically as he circled Richard and Dor. "The market calls," he announced with his trademark smirk, "and we'd be terribly rude to keep it waiting." Dor's eyes lit up at the mention of the market, while Richard struggled to keep up with their cryptic exchange. As they navigated through impossible spaces, the Marquis shared tales of previous markets, each story more outlandish than the last, until Richard couldn't tell if he was being educated or merely entertained. The market exploded into view like a fever dream. Hundreds of lanterns hung in impossible arrangements, illuminating a sprawling bazaar that defied physics. Traders from every conceivable corner of London below hawked their wares: bottled dreams, memories in crystal vials, and weapons forged from lost moments. Richard watched in awe as Dor and the Marquis navigated the chaos with practiced ease. A woman with starlight in her hair offered to trade Richard's Wednesday afternoons for a pocket watch that told the weather of tomorrow. Before he could respond, the Marquis pulled him away, muttering about tourists and terrible deals. The air crackled with magic and possibility, while the scent of exotic incense mixed with the earthier smells of the underground. As they delved deeper into the market's heart, Richard noticed the Marquis exchanging furtive glances with shadowy figures. Dor was busy bargaining for information about her family's murderers, leaving Richard to observe the subtle dance of politics and power playing out around them. A hooded figure brushed past, slipping something into the Marquis's pocket, a movement so swift Richard almost missed it. The Marquis's usually composed face flickered with an emotion Richard couldn't quite place. Before he could ponder it further, screams erupted from the far end of the market. The crowd parted like a dark sea, revealing something that made the Marquis, for the first time since Richard had met him, look genuinely afraid. "Run," he whispered, his usual theatrical flair replaced by raw urgency. "Run now." In the flickering torchlight of a forgotten tunnel, Richard watched in awe as Hunter emerged from the shadows. Her tall, muscular frame moved with the grace of a predator, leather armor creaking softly with each step. Dor had spoken of her legendary status, but seeing her in person left Richard speechless. The warrior woman's eyes held centuries of battles, yet sparkled with an almost childlike excitement when she spoke of the Beast of London. As they shared a modest meal of underground mushrooms and what Hunter called shadow wine, she regaled them with tales of her greatest kills across other cities below. The White Tiger of Kiev, the Bear of Berlin. The Marquis de Carabas listened with unusual attention, his usual smirk replaced by genuine interest. When Hunter pledged her spear to Dor's cause, the air itself seemed to hum with destiny. Their journey through the twisting passages brought them to a chamber that Dor recognized from her childhood. Ancient tapestries depicted scenes of London below's history, their threads somehow still gleaming despite centuries of darkness. As Dor traced the familiar patterns, her fingers triggered a hidden mechanism. The wall dissolved into mist, revealing a secret archive of her family's legacy. Richard noticed tears in her eyes as she discovered a message left by her father, while Hunter tensed at every shadow, her instincts warning of unseen dangers. The Marquis disappeared briefly, returning with news that made their blood run cold. They weren't the only ones seeking Dor's family secrets. The pursuit came without warning. Through the labyrinthine passages they ran, the sound of their hunter's footsteps echoing from every direction. Hunter took the lead, her spear ready, while the Marquis seemed to melt into darkness at will, scouting ahead. Richard, still awkward in this underground world, stumbled upon a discovery that changed everything. An ancient symbol matching the one on Dor's ring. Before he could call out, a hand covered his mouth. Mr. Kroop's voice purred from the darkness. My, what a delightful gathering. The gleam of Mr. Vandermeer's knife caught the dim light, and Richard realized with horror that Hunter had disappeared. The last thing he saw was Dor's face, a mix of terror and determination, as she reached for his hand. And then the darkness swallowed them all.
Thank you for venturing into this realm with me. If you crave more enchanted worlds, mythical battles, and secrets whispered from ancient pages, join the Guild of Storybound Explorers. Subscribe now and ring the bell to unlock every new quest the moment it drops. The next chapter awaits. Will you answer the call?